Welcome to Depth Perspective, a podcast brought to you by the Alex Kirsch Project. On this podcast, I choose a social issue that affects the United States or abroad. This is primarily an interview-based podcast where I find guests or experts who have first-hand knowledge on the topic at hand. On Depth of Perspective, the truth has no bias. There is an issue I think that isn't getting nearly enough attention. Regardless of your personal opinions or convictions about whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, there is an issue at hand that is, in fact, talking about the living. Yet people are not giving it enough of their full attention. The facts I'm about to give you come from the website ifoster.org, a nonprofit organization with over 40,000 members across all 50 states, to include Guam and Puerto Rico. Their mission is to ensure that every child growing up outside of their biological home has the resources and opportunities they need to become successful, independent adults. As of right now, across the United States, there are 424,000 foster youths nationwide, mostly due to children who have been pulled and taken from neglected homes, whether it be from drugs, physical or sexual abuse. These children are then put into the foster care system. Some of them are, after being adopted after a year, end up back in the system because the foster families tend to quit. There are some foster parents that just tend to just give up because they just feel like some of the children they end up getting, whether they try to foster them or adopt them, just feel like they have no real control over them, or they feel like they just want to make them a part of themselves, but yet they're not necessarily conforming to how they want their family structure to be. The median age of children in foster care is 6.5 years old. What's known is that children that tend to grow up without structure tend to have a severe lack of cognitive and emotional development, but we're going to get to that later. 20,000 youth age out of the foster care system between the ages of 18 and 21 annually. Now, what's so troubling about these statistics right here is that this age group especially is left to fend for themselves when they had no real structure growing up. There are youths who grew up without a functional family, and they tend to end up in the justice system. According to the Juvenile Law Center, youths placed in group homes are 2.5 times more likely to get involved in the justice system. And no, I don't mean in a positive sense. 90% of these youths are with 5+ foster placements will enter the justice system. Essentially what that means is if they go to up to 5+ different foster homes. Now, this doesn't mean all foster children are going to be criminals, but all at the same time, this is the risk and the reality that some of these youths actually do face. The foster care system underinvests in foster care, contributing less than 50% of what it costs an average American family to raise a child from 0 to 17 years of age. According to the website on ifoster.org, 70% will be on government assistance, 25% will not have completed high school, and less than 12% will earn a college degree. Within 4 years of aging out, 50% have no earnings, and those who do make an average annual income of $7,500 a year. Regardless of how many entry-level jobs there are, foster children tend to lack the job skills needed in the workforce. Now, while it is still possible that an iFoster Jobs program works tirelessly to assist those who need those job skills to have steps up in the world, there are still far too many people that are unable to make ends meet here. Only 5% of rural foster youth and 21% of urban foster youth have access to a computer at home or have access to a cell phone at home. iFoster, however, has continued to try to help those that need the same level of assistance that their peers tend to get. Since joining with the California Public Utilities Commission, they have provided 12,000 phones in California, and iFoster has provided 5,000 laptops across the country to help better provide opportunities for these at-risk youths. As stated before, there are still thousands of children in the U.S. that need homes. People who are still adopting children from around the world. Why is that, you wonder? Well, children here in the U.S. are just as much victims of abuse and neglect. In some countries, these children have it even worse. Some of these children have no homes, simply because maybe their parents just wanted a boy. Or maybe because they have this distinctive birthmark that their parents don't necessarily approve of. Or their parents died of AIDS or another disease. Natural disaster occurred. War or armed conflict. Parents are incarcerated or missing. The parents are children themselves or are mentally incapable of being functional providers. Or in some cultures, the child is taboo, meaning born out of wedlock or an illegitimate marriage. It gets worse. Children in some of these countries like Ukraine, India, Haiti, Colombia, and Uganda, the quality of life for these children is extremely dire. Some of them are at high risk of death due to unclean water or malnutrition, insufficient shelter, no education or economic opportunity, disease, sex trafficking, child soldier conscripts, and child labor. For the record, this isn't just to suggest that even if they do get adopted and brought to the United States, their nightmare has not ended. Make no mistake about it, evil still lurks on this soil. There are foster parents who don't care about the children they adopt. In some states, foster parents receive tax-free money that can range from $300 to $1,000 a month. In the book Hope's Boy by Andrew Bridge, an attorney who actually specializes in cases like his, he spoke of a story with his foster mother, who was actually a very physically and mentally abusive person, who actually didn't really care about the children that she actually fostered, but as a matter of fact was quite the opposite. She simply did it because it was more money in her pocket. However, I would prefer that you actually took the time to read Hope's Boy. If you're interested in finding this book, you can find it on Amazon. I highly recommend it for anyone to read if you want to learn more about how the foster care system is broken and still remains broken to this day. However, I have a guest who is willing to share with us her story.
My name is Cee Cee, and I live in the Manhattan area of New York.
Cee Cee volunteered to tell us her story. We changed her name at her request. She joins us today to share her life story starting in an orphanage in her native country, to when she was adopted, what life was like during that time, and where she is today. She did specify, however, she wasn't necessarily a child of the foster care system. Her story, though, is similar to those who have been in the foster care system. So, can you go ahead and just give us a little bit of background on your country of origin and what you remember about that life and what your country was like growing up?
Okay. So I grew up at the time, it was called Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg. I was born in the USSR, and at birth, after my mother gave birth to me, 2 days later, I was put into an orphanage. I spent about 6 years in the orphanage before I was adopted. When I was adopted, I moved to about 5 different countries, and I moved about like 14 times. Mostly it was my father's career that allowed him to just move around. First couple 6 years in an orphanage, 10 years with my adoptive family, and then I left my adoptive family at 15. I decided to they went overseas, and then I decided to stay behind and finish my time until college in America, mostly for not to stay with them.
I understand. So what was life like in Russia all the way up until you were 6?
Obviously I was young, so I don't remember too much. I remember the layout of the orphanage. I remember, the beds, where we ate, where we slept, the play area, the people around. One of my really good memories I had was we actually had a park next to the orphanage. We'd be allowed to run around and play. So during the winter time, I would always climb on the slide. I'd look over the slide, get on top, and just overlook the orphanage, the back of the orphanage, we had like a fenced-in area, and I remember like thinking like I was like on top of the world. This is like seeing the world. This was so amazing. Some good memories, I guess, based of that. So I didn't have I've heard of horror stories, but the orphanage I was in, it wasn't bad. I don't have much negative memories of it. It was pretty normal. They treated us right, fed us as they could. You have to remember during that time, after the war, after the Depression, after the Cold War, Russia had a depression, obviously, after the Cold War. It put a lot of strain on families. And so it left a lot of children to be put in orphanages. And then a lot of Russia opened up the country to adoption, because there were a lot of children it's kind of a taboo in Russia culture to adopt children. So Russia opened its borders for foreigners to adopt Russian children, and so that's where I got the opportunity.
How many children were in that orphanage at the time?
Let's see. Probably around 20 to 30. So over there, the way it's a kind of an age system. So obviously, you have like the baby home, the infant homes, and you move around to these different homes because the people in those homes are more suitable for taking care of babies or infants or toddlers. So there's a progression of different houses, they would call them, where they would be moved around. The children would be moved around. So if they hit a certain age, they'd be moved to another house with their same age group.
Interesting. So you said you're at the age of 6. You were adopted to your first family, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How were they as an adoptive family?
They provided a lot. They helped in a lot of times in regards to like financial stuff. So I was very fortunate to be adopted into more of a wealthy family. So I was fortunate enough to, obviously, I had nice homes, I had nice things. We traveled, we had vacations. I'm not in financial debt at all, thanks to them. They paid for my education. So on that aspect, financially, it was very helpful. But as them as raising children, I didn't consider them the best. They weren't really that great. It's just kind of more the fact, I think a lot of people, they adopt children and they think they can like mold children into maybe something they thought that they could have, and then when they don't, it's just like, oh well, that was a mistake. So it was a lot of luckily I was never like sexually abused. It was a lot of mental abuse. So it was just kind of getting through that. So I only spent about my total life 10 years with them, and I'm in my mid-30s. So 10 years with them. Was adopted at 16, left at 15. So yeah, I get in my 10 years with them is, it is what it is, as they say.
Yeah. Were you the only adopted child they have, or did they have more?
We were fortunate enough to have a double adoption. So I have a brother, and he was not biologically my brother, but he was adopted at the same time. He was 2 months old. So he doesn't have much connection with kind of the culture or the background, and he was more of like a fresh slate. So there was definitely kind of different treatment between him and I. So, and still to this day, there's and it's something not only I have observed, but others seem to have observed the mistreatment. But I think it's, like I said, it's just people think that they can mold children into something they want, and it's just not possible. These children already have a personality, they have a culture, they have identity, and you simply just can't try to erase it.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most common trends that I usually hear, like with children that are adopted, whether it's by adoptive parents or in the foster care system, is, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit later on. And you said that you all traveled quite a bit, like on vacations. Was that, and you said it was like work related. Do you mind saying what your adoptive father did, or is that personal?
He worked in the oil industry. He was an engineer. So a lot of his projects were overseas. So we were in Europe a lot. We were in Asia a lot. In North America. Yeah. So you got to see the world quite a bit. Yes, and that's something I still. It's something and I attribute to the what's it called, the slide memory, looking and thinking I've seen the world, and now that I'm at that age where I can actually see the world, I'm like constantly, I'm leaving I've done 29 countries now. Wow. So, and every year I leave twice a year to just see something new. So I continue. It's something I've enjoyed. While not everyone's enjoyed it, it's something that's kind of kept me going. Yeah, it's a lot more countries than I've ever been to. So, yeah. So when it comes down to like the family itself, I know you said that it was kind of a rough upbringing kind of deal. Was that primarily like due to financial stress, or were they just overbearing, or do you really want to go into that? I think it's the fact they couldn't handle I think a lot of times people think because it's a child, a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, that they can kind of like remold them and and they could just easily transition into like a new culture and a new, environment. But it's shown time after time when you move children around, that really affects the child. And so as a parent, you need to be extremely patient with these children. And a lot of people just aren't patient. And when when people aren't patient, obviously that becomes moves on to stress and everything else. I also don't think my adoptive mother is all there in the head. But unfortunately, there was no one to really once we were adopted, there was no one to really check up on us. So we are at the mercy of that. And this was in the 90s, and we didn't have access to internet, so it was just something like you constantly had to deal with. So it was like I had to like constantly deal with being told that I was like the worst child they've ever, like the worst financial purchase they ever made. Even though I've succeeded in life. Obviously, I've got my degrees. I've got my I'm very well off for my age. Everything like that. But it still left a mark on you, didn't it? Yeah. Oh yeah. So, and it still comes. It comes. What was it? It just it's a lot of times I don't think people are psychologically ready for children who are adopted, and children who have come from a different background, moving around, different experiences, and people just think it's easy. And there isn't a lot of, it was the 90s, so it wasn't like any of that was, viewed under a microscope. Certainly. So were they Russian, or were they from another country? They were Americans.
Oh,
They're
okay.
Americans. Yeah.
Okay. You were talking about how you came to the United States to come to school here, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to kind of stay in the United States. That was like your aspiration to stay in the country, correct?
No. So there was I had gone through like the past couple years. The situation with my family got worse and worse. A lot of not physical abuse, emotional abuse. And then like there was an incident where it was pretty much my adopted mother tried to kill me. Took the kitchen knife and went after me. Okay, give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
So after that incident, it was it's the only time I remember my dad kind of stepping in and saying, "Okay, that's I'm luckily he was there to pretty much fight her off, and he kicked her out of the house. Said you need to leave. You need to go get some help for a few days. So he removed her from the house for a couple weeks. We had a couple months where it was just him, and it was something different because he usually went to work early, and we would see him at night and stuff like that. But now he was the father. They're taking us to school and everything like that. So after that incident, it was just came to the point where it was like, he got his new project and he was there. They'd be sent overseas. So after that incident, I was, I don't want to continue to be, in that kind of environment. It's negative, it's toxic. And pretty much this woman she's not capable of handling this situation and handling like me. And the thing is, I was a good kid. I made really good grades, sports and stuff like that. And so she just couldn't handle a lot of this stress of like helping with homework and stuff like that. So I guess it got to her point where she did something like that. So after that situation, I was like, I'm gonna stay here. So I ended up staying in boarding school. I left and they provided me a boarding school until I graduated, and then from there went to college, and then after college moved on to New York.
What about your brother? Did he experience the same things you did?
We had talked about it actually this last time I visited him, which I didn't know, but I guess I found out because we had different experiences with like my mother and my father. Like I was very close to my dad, and while my brother was more close to my mother. I was really good at math, so there wasn't a lot of stressful situations where he had to teach me math. But my brother had told me when he was doing math homework with my brother that there was a few incidences where like my dad would strike my brother, which I had never. I was like, what? I had no clue that happened. So, and it's just the observation's like very clear with a lot of family members, and but they can't say much. So it's just kind of that's I mean, there wasn't much escape. You couldn't do a lot of things, and during the time you didn't have the internet, so which was in a way a good thing.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I think at 10 I was thinking about killing myself at 10. So luckily there wasn't much options, not like an easy access to go Google up like the easiest way to do it. So
yeah,
it's a which this day and age, I notice why that contributes to a lot of child suicides. it's because the access of internet easier to do it. So if so that's where, because I there is a lot of high statistic suicide rate in foster care children, obviously in situations like this where they're in abusive family and there's no way out. The system isn't there protecting them. There's no there's not even a system protecting kids like us, foreign born adoptees. It's just all about helping the family, the parent, but nothing about the child. And so you're at the mercy of these people. It's a gamble.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. So that was actually going to be one of the questions I was also going to ask you about that. Do you think, like, have you actually met other children like that since you've been in the United States? Have you met any other children that have been adopted, whether they were from the United States or from abroad, like while you're at boarding school or in your lifetime?
Yes. I'm in like support groups, and actually recently there was we had a meeting with the federal government about they wanted to, I guess now officially start helping children like us, because there is, unfortunately, a lot of times these children are actually stolen. They're brought to this country, they don't have papers, and then when we had this federal meeting, there was a woman that was like, one of your citizens kidnapped me from my country, brought me back, and then you guys deported me.
Wow.
Like, there's no support system for people like us.
No.
And then you allow these, these Americans to take advantage of the system and then dump us off. And I've had people that were kidnapped, parents brought to America, family didn't like them, so thrown in the foster care system for someone else to adopt them and figure it out. So it just there's no support system for even adopted children or anyone in the foster care system, period.
So when it comes down to some of the people that you've spoken with, do you think it's worse for a child in the foster care system that is from the United States or from somebody that is from overseas like yourself, based on your experiences or what you've heard from other people?
I think it's a little harder for foreigners because a lot of the time the identity and your culture is taken away. And so that's something I've learned through the years when I've been in New York. People understand their culture. They understand, their language, everything that goes with that. And then you're thrown in you're almost embarrassed to say where you're from because it's like, oh, you don't know anything about where you're from. So you just have a missing piece of yourself. And you're having at a certain age and especially with this day and age where a lot of, which is, I'm glad for social media and stuff, was a lot of people post about cultural stuff. And I follow a lot of those pages because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to claim that I'm Russian American or whatever, if anyone claims they're Chinese American and everything like that, it's good to kind of learn the culture and understand it. It's just a lot of people don't understand it because it's something that's constantly taught to them. So it might be something that you just have no clue of, you just naturally know it. But when you're learning or when you travel, you learn about the culture, right? Mm-hmm. But this is something that's been ingrained with them all their life. And you're in your, younger children as 18 to 20, they're learning that, okay, they've come from this culture and they want to learn about it. And so it's this process of having to relearn something that you should know. And I think that's a massive complaint because they kind of, these parents kind of try to wash away their past, and you simply just can't do that. That
would be very alienating, actually, if you think about that. Have you ever like had the chance to like maybe seek out like your birth parents, or have you not been able to, or is like there's no way to find that out?
I actually about 3 years ago, I did I at 27, after years of begging for my paperwork, and that's the kind of the sucky part. And this is laws in America and laws in general. We have a system where the child's identity can be hidden, hidden from the child, because there's like closed adoption, where it's like the parent doesn't want to like obviously display where they're from, or where that the family has a sorry, I said that wrong.
It's okay.
So you have this system where these family have all the paperwork, and you're at the mercy of them and trying to get their the paperwork and where you come from and your identity, your birth certificates, all of that. There are laws in place where you can file. Well, unfortunately, some people have had to sue their own families for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I've been fortunate enough. I did hire a private investigator. She helped me find my family, and so I found them 3 years ago, and we're connected. And I actually go back every year to go visit them.
So there's a good relationship there, or is it just like?
Yeah, it's a good relationship. There's language barriers, but as now I'm learning the culture, learning the language, and trying to like reconnect with that side of the family. The only family I have left on that side though is my grandmother. She unfortunately, not unfortunately, but she's fortunate enough, but unfortunate enough where she's outlived her husband and her children. So she's kind of just left with the grandchildren. And there's definitely, it's something she just massively regrets. And she talks about it every time. She's like, I could have kept you, but I couldn't. Like, it was just like, she struggles with herself because she's like, kind of like, well, I could have probably done this. Like, why did I give up? Because she was taking care of 7 other children.
Yeah.
Because it was hard times. After the war, you get pretty messed up. And most of the family members were like, if they survived Leningrad, the bombings, the village that they were from was Nazi occupied, so most of that village was eliminated. From thousands to 100 people left at the end of the war. After that, it was just everything from Cold War to Russian depression, and it just put a lot of strain on a lot of people. So, and then, for her, it's, I do look exactly like her and her daughter, my mother, a lot more than my sister. So I think for her, that's a kind of like, oh wow, I see my own daughter in my grandchild, and maybe I could have, done better. Which is sad because it's kind of like, how do you say something like, oh, you're kind of torn because it's like, my life wasn't, obviously like the end of the world. I made it through or whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't want to, like, I don't know. It's a conflicting thing. So I just say, hey, let's live in the moment. Let's figure it out now. Let's hang out. Let's go eat. We'll figure it out.
Certainly. I mean, it's You kind of have to look at it like that because everything that's already taken place has already happened, and it's sometimes it's hard for people to let go of stuff like that. Regret is usually something that eats people up inside, and that's the one thing that people need to understand is like when it comes to regret is that you're living in the past, and it kind of just has a vice-like grip on you. But that's one of the things I usually say is like, whatever happened to you in the past has already occurred. It's time for you to focus on the future, which is basically what you were saying right there. Mm-hmm. So, but it's good to know that you've kind of found your roots and kind of found that identity. Because do you think that maybe like you said earlier, like not having your culture, not having the identity was like a really crucial part about your upbringing? I mean, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's just you're kind of. You grow up being told you're this culture, and the thing is, I've been to a few states, lived in a few states, and it wasn't that diverse. So, like, culture, being born from a different country, like, wasn't a big thing. But as I got older and more identified as, not identified because I am, but more got, when I was more knowledgeable about the culture, I came to the realization of like how much I lacked the education in that culture, like the history, the holidays, and so that kind of I regretted it more as when I met my bio family, because I was like, wow, like I should know this stuff and I don't. So now it's at this age, it's like me having to read, watch, relearn the culture that people naturally might not even know that they know.
And you said it's fairly common amongst people that were adopted that were from like overseas, like countries like Haiti or Ukraine,
China. Yeah. A lot of Asian countries, they're torn between the two, America and like a lot of like Asian culture, because it's just like you're not welcomed in America in a way because obviously you look different, but then when you go over there to those countries, you're kind of not welcome there either, because it's just kind of you're just like a missing piece, and you don't really understand their culture or their language and stuff. So a lot of children feel like they're in limbo because they're not welcomed in any location. So it's like, what? Oh, shoot! Like, what do I do? I can't. They're just stuck in this place. And the sad part is, if you're adopted and you're put out in middle of America where there's no one you can go to kind of like maybe learn off of them, you're stuck in learning this one culture, or the American culture. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just when you're born from China, you have the language, the history and all that, and so that's missing. And obviously you get those questions, not someone I would, because I mean I look American, as they say, but people who look different are obviously going to be questioned when they're in middle America, like, oh, you don't really live here, like, where were you born? Mm-hmm. kind of that kind of stuff. And so then it puts them in an uncomfortable position of like, well, I was born here, but I don't know much, kind of thing.
And you're talking about specifically, like, for example, somebody that's a person of color, essentially, like if...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another topic. A person of from that federal meeting, there were over couple hundred people. Each had their turn of talking to the agency. A lot of them were people of color, and they weren't happy. They went as far as saying this should be illegal. Mm-hmm. They called it the white horse mentality. So these suburban mothers feel like they can like save a child from a third world country and give them a better life. But the thing is, they're adopting these children, they're ripping them from their culture, and then they're not even taking the time to continue to learn that culture and help the child remember that culture. It's just stripped from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of them like are obviously very angry, because just it's kind of like, you took me from this home, I didn't have a choice, and then you put me in middle America. I was treated bad, and then on the same thing, you also didn't give me any like information, or you never educated me on my culture. So if I ever decide to go back, I'm kind of like the black sheep there, is how a lot of them felt. So there's actually a lot of children that actually think that multiracial adoption should be illegal, mostly because these families kind of just make it worse for these children.
Do they ever share stories like where they're told you should just be thankful that you were torn out of that war-torn nation, stuff like that?
Yeah, they have it's, and that's the annoying part. They get these children, and they're put in this idea that like, we saved you and you should be thankful and everything like that. And the thing is, you don't even know if it was going to be that bad. If you were taken out, it's just like this God sent, like, you should be grateful and you need to accept that you're here kind of thing. And then there's utterly no respect for if someone wants to learn about their culture. And this is something I have to deal with all the time. And it sucks, because it was something I couldn't even like maybe there was like a jealousy issue, but when I started going back to Russian and I started learning the language and the culture, I was like shamed from my own family. Like, why are you learning that? You're American. You should know American stuff. And it was like, that's what do you mean? Like, I'm a dual citizen.
Yeah.
Like, I was born there. I live there. I remember the my memories there. Like, why are you shaming me for wanting to like go back to my roots? And that happens a lot, and it sucks, because it's just kind of like, like I would have to kind of hide that, like, I'm gonna go see my family again, and it's like, why are you going there? They did, they threw you out and stuff like that. But the way I see it is, you don't understand what the situation was at the time. And I would never be, and that was like the one thing I wish I could have told my mom. It's just, I'm not mad at all. You did what you had to do, and I'm not mad about that. Like, don't get like, just bad situations happen. And she grew up as young as 18, her husband dying, and then being, having a child, my first sister, having her husband die, then be pregnant with her dead husband's, child, at 18. And so the stress of that continued on. And so you don't understand people's situation, and you can't get mad about that. And that's something I'm always kind of, and that's a big like debate in the, a lot of the adoption or even foster care debates, is like, well, they left you, right? So but you don't understand their situation. You don't know what happened. Give them a chance.
That tends to be like the issue. People are like, well, your family didn't care enough about you, so you should be thankful because we adopted you. But, the thing is like, you're not even given the opportunity to decide for yourself, essentially. Instead, you're being told, this is what you need to understand, and you just need to accept that.
Yes. And then conform to like our ideology, our culture, our personality. And a lot of times, these people expect these children to, mimic the same personality as the parent, but they gotta remember that these are children and they have their own identity. And you just can't remove that or expect it to be removed.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there are actually some good adoptive families out there that actually try their best to take care of them?
Yeah, 100%. And I really hope the more adoptees or foster care are speak out about it, the more they're saying, the more they say, look, if you're going to do this, have the respect of knowing what you're getting yourself into, because you got to remember, you're bringing in, like, and this is, the science backs it up, you're bringing in a very broken child. Like, even the brain is damaged through science. That's been proven through science. The brain is damaged when stuff like this happens. You bring shock to the brain for a child. I read the research behind it. The frontal core of the brain gets damaged, and this part of the brain affects emotion. And when you don't have that around you, it's, if you don't know what's right and wrong, and that's part of your brain, that's the part of the brain that tells you what's right or wrong, if that's damaged, then that's issues, right? Even the CDC has steps. If your child is 30 days, it should be doing this, this, and this. It should react to you smiling. It should react to you crying. Like, it should react, period. In the baby. And if it doesn't, every single, like, and this is from 1 to 5 at the beginning of stages of having like a child. If these children aren't doing something like that, they go to a doctor, go to a doctor, go to the doctor. Every single step is like that. If your child's not doing this, the thing is, you have the opportunity to fix it and heal that part of the brain. The brain is always healing. And so, but it takes a certain kind of person to understand that and to figure out how to fix it. Yeah. It's a lot more work, and I feel like a lot of people don't understand it because they have their own kids, so they don't understand that part of it. Mm-hmm. But you're almost like having to reset a child again and teach it emotions. And that was something, and it costs money. Like when I was adopted, they had to spend a lot of money to pretty much like teach me emotion. They said I wouldn't cry, I wouldn't smile, no sense of emotion. They said you could fall, I could fall, I punched through glass, no emotion. And that's what happens. It's there's a part of the brain that gets damaged, no emotion happens, and that later on, that continues on. If it's not fixed, it becomes a massive problem later on. I mean, that's a lot of times that happens with, not to like, put like, a lot of times that just happens with people. And it's not able to be fixed as a young child, and it continues on into adulthood.
And I take it this is something that you still struggle with from day to day, right?
Yeah. It's something I'm trying to like fix, because obviously I'm pretty good at like mimicking those around me, right? So So you learn real quick how to adapt to your surroundings, because that's simply a survival mechanism. People are happy, okay, you act happy. People are sad, okay, act happy. But it's just like, it's something constant that I have to I have to fucking Google something, because how am I supposed to react to this? For me, it's like a lot of times I like just simply don't feel anything. And that's what sucks, because I'm like, fuck, I'm supposed to be mad, right? Like, This is the situation I have to be in. That's normal, right? So it just when you're not taught that at a young age, and you have to learn older on, it sucks. Because I had my boss told me a few times, she was like, you need to at least be like sympathetic or show emotion sometimes, because you lack that. And I'm like, oh shit, like, fuck. How do I explain that one?
How do I do this? That's and is that kind of like why you like take part in these support groups, to kind of help people, find a connection and to understand, listen, I've been in your position before, so I mean, is that kind of why you take part in these group sessions?
That was like the first time I actually, the one with the federal, because the thing is, that was the first time they've decided to do it. First time the federal government has decided to actually pay attention to children of adoptees. Because it's constant, it's still going on. People are still adopting from foreign countries. They're still adopting from here too. And the same thing can apply for if you adopt from a child here, because it's all the same. These children are eventually, they're going to want to find their family. They've come from broken homes. You need to help, you need to be trained to help these children. And it's just some people aren't qualified for it. A lot of people aren't qualified. It's not even, I think a vast majority of people are not qualified. And yes, we can and when I looked up, when I did a lot of my research on the foster care system, it was so much kind of propaganda, like, oh, it's a perfect thing. But it's like, when you look at the numbers, it just, you're having kids kill themselves at alarming rates. You're having children have the statistics of a child in a foster care system are actually 20% higher of children getting PTS than people coming back from wars, Iraq war and Afghanistan wars. Mm-hmm. And these are children. You're talking about children.
Yes.
They're not equipped to they don't have the brain development as an adult. So you're having children with PTSD, and then you're putting them in these situations, and the people around them aren't trained to help them.
And they're not willing to take the time to find out what's wrong with the children. They just think, this is damaged goods right here. It's time to, get rid of this child. Oh, sorry, we made a mistake.
Yeah, and recycle them into another family.
And that happens all the time. That's one of the things that I've actually read, is that it happens a lot. Like, some families are incapable of taking care of this child, and like within a year, they give this child up, which can have a huge psychological impact, because then the child's just going to believe, well, I'm no good to anybody, am I?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it continues and continues, and it continues, and it goes to the point, at 18, you're like, it sucks, because you just kind of like, who cares kind of thing. And we're not even accounting for what happens after 18, if you want to talk about that later. But it's just at the young stage development part of that, the moving around is scientifically damaging. They've done the research on it. It's sad what it does. And like I said, I think it's not hilarious, but there's CDC guidelines on how your child should develop through the years, and here we are doing this thing to our children, moving around and giving them this damaged, damaging their brain, and not giving them any time to heal, and then expecting them to just be okay, just live through it, figure it out, even though they're children.
Well, you can go ahead. When it comes down to once they're turned 18, what was the thing you were going to say about that?
So there is a massive issue. It's called the age out system. So pretty much at 18, as soon as they hit 18, if the foster care family doesn't care about them, pack your bags, get the hell out. Mm-hmm. And there is absolutely no support system. Yeah. These past couple years, no one's taught them how to do taxes. They're not going to have enough money to get an apartment, get a job. It just I think the statistics is 50%, and let me see, in 4 years, 50% end up homelessness. Yeah, 20,000 age out, and it's just at 18, you're just thrown out. Good luck. There's no support system, and I think it's just for me, it's just so hypocritical of a system that's saying, okay, well, we want the child to come out, we want it to live, but as soon as it comes out, you're throwing this child into a system where it's constantly abused until 18, and then at 18 you throw them out, and personally, I see it as a funneling into the prison system. Mm-hmm. And statistically, most of them end up in jail, because it's obviously the easiest way. Not that they ever want to blame the foster care system for their crimes, but it led up to that. It's a gateway into it, and it's simply a survival mechanism they have to do. They might have to commit crimes, steal or whatever, just to get by, because you're just, what do you do? What do you do at 18? You have no money. What's your options?
I read into that at the introduction, actually, of this episode. We're talking about how youth that grow up without a functional family tend to end up in the justice system. And according to the Juvenile Law Center, youth placed in group homes are 2.5 times more likely to get in the justice system, which is a staggering number if you think about it. And
the numbers keep going up.
And they keep going up. I mean, it's not slowing down anytime soon, because and what I also read earlier was that their average annual income is $7,500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing, especially with the cost of living, especially in places like New York, Los Angeles, places like that. I mean, mm-hmm. you couldn't even get a shack of an apartment anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget, a lot of these times, in order to get apartments, you got to have credit score, you got to have a job. They don't have anyone to turn to. So what do you do? A lot of them end up homelessness. End up in homelessness. And that's continues to happen. And the more kids in foster care, the more they age out, the more they're thrown into jails or thrown into homelessness. And it's just there's ways of fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, at some point, yeah.
So when it comes down to it, do you think that since you've lived in the United States, do you think that the system is at all improving, even if it's a minuscule improvement, or do you think it's just getting worse and worse?
I think it's definitely getting worse and worse. The funding is less and less funding goes into it. No one is really stepping up and saying, hey, no, a lot of times people can't even acknowledge the fact that it's happening. They don't just, they just, you bring it up, and a lot of people just say, well, I don't want to discuss this. This is hard to listen to. It's, I don't want to hear about it, kind of thing. And people just, it's easier just to ignore it. And a lot of times, we can tend to forget, in order to have a thriving economy and thriving country and thriving citizens, you need to help out the less fortunate. And so I don't think a lot of times they understand the situation in which these children are brought up, all up until 18 years they're brought up into. And then somehow they're expected to just figure it out with no support system. They have nothing, nowhere to go. There's, I looked at a few states that have a support system, where they give these 18-year-olds like a room and board and help, give them like a cell phone, help them teach how to. I mean, they gotta learn the basics, like how to apply for apartment, how to do your W-2, how to eventually, once you get your taxes, how to do taxes. It's just kind of like good luck. And there's no state funding, little to no state funding for the out of age system. It goes more into paying these families that most likely, most of them aren't qualified, just to keep them, and just, it's just they feel like it's maybe a quick temporary fix, even though it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, most of the time I think they're just not looking into it. It's just a quick band-aid, and we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, and you'll probably occasionally hear the occasional argument from somebody that's never actually experienced it, or the one case where, hey, I was an adopted child and I had a great childhood. Mm-hmm. You should just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I mean, mm-hmm. What do you say to people that think like that? It's like, hey, telling you, hey, you just need to suck it up. And just, this is America, the land of opportunity right here. Mm-hmm. You just need to get over it. What do you say to people like that?
Congratulations, you won the lottery. You expect everyone else to win the lottery too? I mean, you need to be practical. Just because you had it good, or maybe you were fortunate enough, that doesn't apply to all. And statistically, it's not even true. So look at the numbers, the amount of suicide rates, the amount of, emotional abuse, statistically that's on the records, physical abuse that's put on record in the foster care system. Like, you're expecting everyone to win the lottery? It's not possible. You have to be reasonable.
So you talked about how there's actually a solution to this. If you were to put let's say, for example, Cee Cee's put in charge of like figuring out a long-term solution. It's not something that's going to get figured out overnight. It's not going to get figured out in the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We're talking about like long-term. What do you think would be the first step into fixing the system itself?
So I think, let's see how we can help. First, you need to fix the problem at home. A lot of times these children are taken out of the foster care system because the home is broken. The mother might not be able to financially take care of the child. So all the funding is going to the wrong places. It needs to stay with inside the family. Spend the money, and it's going to be extra. I'm sorry, but we live in a system where we do the laziest way. Oh, just go down the list. But it's gonna take time to do the research, find the child's family. My biggest thing is try to keep the family with the family, because no matter what, and I see this constantly, and I know it's like a terrible thing, but you treat your blood relatives a little differently than you do your friends, and I simply just see that as it is. No one would ever think that, right? And every parent's like, no, I don't have a favorite child or anything like that. But it's just simply they slightly see the child differently than if it was their own relative. So a big thing is to allocate the funds to keeping the family up afloat. If the mother needs help with the houses, and we've met people like that, where it's just like, I just went through bad times, and I just needed some financial help. And then of course you're always going to get the people that take advantage of the system. Yes, you're gonna have that, but why are you going to gamble small percentage and affect children in that process? So a lot of the funding needs to go to family prevention is the word. So let me just make sure. Family prevention and support is massively what needs to be put in place. So I think that's one way for more of the younger children, because as I said, childhood development from 1 to 6 is almost the most important thing. And
yes.
If we can keep the child in one area, then do it. Keep in a happy family, happy environment. Even if the mother needs a break or something, certainly. Give it, grandma or cousin or something, anyone, right?
Yeah. And then you're going to have those same naysayers like, well, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to fund this? Who's going to pay for this? The taxpayers are going to pay for this?
That's literally the definition of the social services. I don't understand this idea that we need to profit off of everything. Eventually, that's going to save us money. We're not going to have to spend money to jail these children later on in a for-profit jailing system. We're not going to have to spend money on, the future if they get into drugs and crime and everything like that. You spend money up front, just like I was fortunate to have. I was fortunate enough to have be given a opportunity to not be in debt and get an education, and I'm thriving. I'm paying my taxes. I'm contributing back. And yes, that cost money at the beginning. Of course it did. It's going to cost money for psychological help. It's going to cost money for if there's medical issues, because a lot of times these children come from drug addiction parents, and so that obviously that goes into the child, and they got to fix that. So spend the money up front, and later on it comes down. People expect everything instant, but we're talking about 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And you need to wait it out. I mean, it's just practical. So yeah, spin because, and it's been shown statistically in states where if you help up front, you're gonna save a lot more money later down the road. So I think once again, a lot of it comes down to patience. Like you can't expect things to happen overnight. It takes time, and these are children. At what cost are you going to say, I will, if it was your own child, like what's the financial cap for you? Like, are you going to stop like at 100,000, 200,000? Like for you, if this was your situation, what is the financial cap you put on your own child? Yeah. Now put that with other children. Like what do you feel is the cap for that child? Like when's it like, not worth it, kind of thing.
So let's just say that you've got a couple that wants to adopt a child. What would be the biggest piece of advice for you to give them when it comes down to adopting this child?
For me, it's be patient, be understanding, listen. I think mostly that, just patience.
All right. Yeah, before I let you go, I just want to take the time to thank you so very much for sharing your story with us today. And I know it's very difficult for you to share stories like this, but that's why this podcast is around, to kind of spread awareness on topics that people aren't talking enough about.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I really hope after listening to this, people look more into it. Look around your neighborhood, around your area, see if there's places that you can, potentially help these children, because a lot of these children just need support. And the ones that have succeeded, say their biggest thing is they had someone there that was lifting them up, saying, you can do this, like, I'll help you. We're needing stuff like that. And it's like, you don't need instant gratification. Like later on, just because you don't see it now doesn't mean it won't affect them later down the road. You could be potentially saving a child's life, as we know from the suicide rates. And it's just, a lot of times it's just these children just need support, whether it be financial, whether it be mental support, whether it be just being there and encouraging them. Okay. It's really a big thing, and that can be for free if you're worried about financings. Go to find a I think there were You Thrive was something I found. Because I was wondering when I looked for the out of age system, like what states were helping or what programs. So Indiana, Outreach Indiana, and You Thrive, I saw seemed like you can see what they're doing, just like to better understand what will help these out of age children, what they're doing to help these children succeed.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of what we need to start funding and helping.
I couldn't agree more. Now, once again, thank you so much for your time, Cee Cee, and I do appreciate you sharing your story with us today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Cee Cee's story is one of many examples of how damaging it could be to have to pick up your entire life just to move in with complete strangers, people who say that they will be your family. As a child, she expressed in this episode that while she was lucky that she has been successful in life, not all people in the foster care or adoption system are as fortunate. She still has pains and struggles in life, and while many others in the system suffer due to a lack of accountability or just a lack of overall awareness, there are, however, still good families out there who are willing to open up their homes to a child. And there are many things to take into consideration when adopting a child, regardless of whether they're born in the United States or abroad. To know the child you're getting into and to help them understand who they are, but all the same, still making them feel welcome to come into your home. If you feel like contributing to help out a child to find a loving home, feel free to go to websites such as the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption. Every child deserves a good home, and every child deserves a fighting chance in this world. This has been another episode of Depth of Perspective, where the truth has no bias. I want to take the time to thank our guest for joining us for this episode. Be sure to catch us next time on Spreaker, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. This has been Depth of Perspective with your host, Alex Kirsch.